My name is Helena, and for 15 years, I believed I was living the perfect marriage. Eduardo and I met in college, married young, and built a life that seemed straight out of a fairy tale. We had a beautiful house in the suburbs, 2 wonderful children, Sophia, 12, and Miguel, 9, and a routine that, while predictable, gave me a sense of security and happiness. Eduardo worked as a manager at a consulting firm, while I dedicated myself to graphic design, working part-time so I could better care for the children. Our sex life wasn't what it had been in the early years of our marriage, but I attributed that to fatigue from the routine and family responsibilities. After all, that was normal in long marriages, wasn't it? Everything changed one Tuesday in March. Eduardo had come home late the night before, saying he'd stayed late at the office finishing an important project. In the morning, he rushed off to a meeting, forgetting the suit I'd laid out for him the day before. I decided to be a thoughtful wife and bring the suit to his office. I grabbed the suit from the closet, and before putting it in the bag, checked the pockets to make sure there was nothing that could wrinkle or damage the garment. That's when my fingers touched something that would change my life forever. A small, folded piece of paper. My first reaction was one of innocent curiosity. Maybe it was an important receipt or a work note. But when I unfolded the paper, I felt as if the ground had disappeared beneath my feet. My love, every moment away from you is an eternity. I can't wait to feel your arms around me again. You make my heart beat faster. I love you infinitely. Yours forever, M. I read and reread those words over and over, as if reading them again could change the content. My hands trembled and my heart raced. M? Who was M? And why was my husband carrying a love letter from someone else? I tried to rationalize. Maybe it was something old from before our marriage, but the paper looked new, and the ink still had a fresh shine. Maybe it was a joke between coworkers, but what kind of joke was it? With shaky legs, I sat on the edge of the bed and tried to process what was happening. Was Eduardo cheating on me? Was my husband, the father of my children, the man with whom I shared dreams and plans for the future, having an affair? I decided not to confront Eduardo immediately. I needed to be sure. I needed more evidence. I couldn't destroy my family based on a single note, no matter how devastating. In the following days, I began to observe my husband with new eyes. Every call he answered in another room, every time he arrived late, every smile he gave while looking at his phone, everything took on a sinister meaning. I became a detective in my own home. Eduardo didn't seem any different. He was still affectionate with me, playing with the kids, complaining about the traffic and problems at work. This normalcy left me even more confused. How could he maintain this facade so perfectly? A week after the first note, I found the second. This time it was in the pocket of his jeans, which he'd left in the laundry basket. My heart raced again, when I recognized the same type of paper and the same delicate handwriting. Darling, our conversation last night left me over the moon. You have a unique way of making a woman feel special. I can't wait for us to meet again. Warm kisses, M. This time, there was no doubt. It was recent, it was real, and it was about my husband. I felt a mixture of anger, sadness, and disgust I'd never experienced before. How could he do this to me? To us? I started paying more attention to Eduardo's schedule. Was he really working late, or was he seeing his mistress? I decided to do my own research. One Thursday, Eduardo said he had a late meeting. I left the kids, with my mother, saying I had some business to attend to, and followed my husband. I saw him leave the office at his usual time and drive to an elegant restaurant downtown. I parked far enough away to be out of sight, but close enough to observe. My heart nearly stopped when I saw Eduardo embrace a dark, elegant woman who looked to be about 35. They kissed. Not a kiss between friends or colleagues, a kiss between lovers. I stood there, paralyzed in my car, watching my world crumble. They walked into the restaurant hand in hand, like a couple in love, as if I didn't exist, as if our children didn't exist. I returned home in shock. The children were already asleep when I arrived, and my mother asked if I was okay, noticing my paleness. I made up an excuse about a headache, and she left, not before giving me a tight hug, as if she knew something was wrong. I sat on the living room sofa, where Eduardo and I had so often watched movies, cuddling, and cried. I cried for the lost naivete, the broken trust, the shattered dreams. I cried for my children, who didn't yet know their family was falling apart. Eduardo arrived home around 11 o'clock at night, with a smile on his face and the scent of perfume, not mine, permeating his clothes. "Hi, love," he said, kissing me on the forehead. "How was your day?" The hypocrisy of that question made me feel nauseous. How could he act so normal? How could he kiss me after being with another woman? "It was normal," I replied, controlling myself from exploding right there. "And yours? How was the meeting?" "Oh, you know how these things are. Boring, long, but necessary," he lied with frightening ease. "I'm going to take a shower and go to bed." As I listened to the sound of the shower, I began to plan my revenge. Eduardo thought he was clever, that he could fool me forever, but he was sorely mistaken. For the next 2 weeks, I continued to pretend nothing had changed. I smiled, cooked, took care of the children, and kept the house in order. But inside, I was planning every move of my revenge. First, I needed to find out more about the mistress. In the notes, she signed herself only as M, but I needed to know who she was. A deeper investigation into my husband's life was necessary. I started by discreetly checking his email and social media accounts. Eduardo wasn't particularly careful with passwords. He used the same one for almost everything, our wedding date. The irony was cruel. It was in his personal email that I found what I was looking for. Messages exchanged with a certain Mariana Silva. The messages were intimate, full of promises of eternal love and future plans. I discovered she worked in the same field as Eduardo, but at a competing company. They met at a networking event 3 months ago. 3 months. For 3 months, my husband had been lying to me every day. For 3 months, I was a lovesick idiot, while he built a parallel life with another woman. The messages revealed more sordid details. They met twice a week, always in different hotels. Eduardo had told her our marriage was only for the children, that he hadn't loved me for years. What a lie. Just the week before, he had told me he loved me, that I was the woman of his life. But what shocked me most was discovering that Mariana didn't know Eduardo was still maintaining a normal married life with me. He had painted a picture of us practically separated, where I was cold and distant. She believed he was just waiting for the right moment to divorce. It was then that a brilliant idea came to me. If Eduardo wanted to play with 2 women, lying to both of them, I would make sure we both knew the truth, and he would be the one to pay the highest price. First, I needed to gather all the evidence I could. I photographed every note I found and continued to find new ones regularly. I saved screenshots of email and text conversations. I documented the times of his meetings and work trips that coincided with his trysts. I also discreetly hired a private investigator. I needed professional photographic evidence for the divorce I was already planning. The investigator confirmed what I already knew. The lawyer I chose, Dr. Roberto Mendez, was known for his expertise in marital infidelity cases. He explained that, with the evidence I had, Eduardo would have very little bargaining power in a divorce proceeding. I would retain custody of the children, as would most of the couple's assets. "You have a very well-documented case," Dr. Mendez told me during our consultation. "I rarely see someone so prepared. Your husband will be completely taken by surprise." This was exactly what I wanted. I chose a Friday to execute my plan. Eduardo had said he had an important meeting and would be late. I knew it was one of my dates with Mariana. The kids would be at my in-laws' house for a special weekend with their grandparents, something I'd arranged weeks earlier, claiming we needed some alone time to revive our marriage. During the day, I made a point of acting normal. I made Eduardo's favorite breakfast, gave him a sweet kiss when he left for work, and even texted him in the afternoon asking how his day was going. "Busy, but I'll be home with you soon, my love," he replied. Another lie. That afternoon, I executed the first part of my plan. I created a fake profile on social media and messaged Mariana, pretending to be a private investigator hired by a betrayed wife. I attached some of the photos the detective had taken of her with Eduardo. The message read, "Ms. Mariana, I need to inform you that Mr. Eduardo Santos, with whom you have been in a relationship, has been married for 15 years and has 2 children. I am attaching photographic evidence of the 2 of you together. I thought you should know the truth about the situation. His wife found out and is planning to take legal action." Then I waited. Mariana responded in less than an hour, clearly in shock. She swore she didn't know Eduardo was still married, that he had said he was practically separated. She said she needed to talk to him immediately. Perfect. The first bombshell had been planted. Eduardo arrived home around 10 o'clock, earlier than usual for his meetings. I immediately noticed something was different. He seemed nervous, avoided my gaze, and went straight to take a shower without greeting me properly. When he came out of the bathroom, I was sitting on the bed, holding a folder with all the evidence I had collected. "We need to talk," I said, with a calm I didn't know I possessed. "Of course, love. About what?" He tried to sound casual, but his voice was strained. I opened the folder and placed the first photo on the bed. A picture of him, and Mariana kissing at the restaurant door. Eduardo's face instantly paled. "Helena, I can explain—" "Really?" I interrupted, placing more photos and copies of the notes on the bed. "Because I would love to hear how you're going to explain 3 months of lies, 3 months of betrayal, 3 months of destroying our family while pretending you loved me." Eduardo tried to move closer, but I pulled away. "Please, let me explain. It's not what you think." "It's not what I think?" My voice began to rise in pitch. "Eduardo, I have photos, emails, messages, notes. I know about the apartment you rented. I know you see each other every Tuesday and Friday. I know you told her our marriage was a sham, that you no longer loved me. So tell me, dear husband, what exactly is not what I think?" He sat heavily in the bedroom chair, his head in his hands. "It was a mistake, Helena. A terrible mistake. I don't know how it happened. You have to believe me. I never wanted to hurt you." "You never wanted to hurt me?" I laughed bitterly. "Eduardo, you cheated on me for 3 months. You lied to me every day. You kissed our children with the same mouth you kissed your lover, and you still have the audacity to say you didn't want to hurt me?" "But you know what amazes me most, Eduardo?" I continued, pulling more documents from the folder. "It's your ability to lie. Not just to me, but to her too." I put the conversations I'd had with Mariana through the fake profile on the bed. She'd told me the entire version Eduardo had given her about our marriage. Mariana truly believed you were unhappy with me, that we were practically separated, that you were just waiting for the right moment to divorce. Imagine her surprise to discover that you still slept in my bed every night, that you still told me you loved me, that we still made family vacation plans. Eduardo lifted his head, his eyes wide. You talked to her?" "Of course I did. In fact, we had a very enlightening conversation. She was shocked to discover what kind of man you really are. Someone capable of lying to 2 women simultaneously, of building 2 parallel lives based on lies. I took out my phone and showed him some of the messages Mariana had sent me after the conversation. She broke up with you, Eduardo. She said she can't trust a man who can deceive his own wife so easily. After all, If you could lie to me for 15 years of marriage, what made you think it would be any different with her? Eduardo was in complete shock. Helena, please, we can get through this. We can go to therapy, work through our problems. Our problems? I interrupted. Eduardo, we don't have problems. You have problems. I have a solution. It was then that I handed him the third and final surprise of the night, the divorce papers. Everything's already prepared, I explained as Eduardo leafed through the documents with trembling hands. My lawyer said that, with the evidence we have, the process will be very straightforward. I'll have custody of the children. After all, you've proven yourself to be a terrible example of character. I'll also have the house, as well as 70% of the couple's assets. You can keep your freedom, which is what you've apparently always wanted. Helena, please don't do this. Think about the children. I thought about the children, Eduardo. I thought about it a lot. And I concluded that they deserve to grow up seeing what a relationship based on respect and honesty is, something they'll never learn by watching you. Eduardo tried to argue, begged, promised to change. But it was too late. Trust, once broken, could not be repaired. Love, once betrayed, could not be recovered. I explained that he had until the end of the month to leave the house, that he could see the children every other weekend, but only after we'd talked with them about the separation. I made it clear that any attempt to manipulate the situation would result in more severe legal action. And Eduardo, I said, gathering up all the documents, if you try to make me look crazy, or tell a different version of the story to our friends and family, I will not hesitate to make all this evidence public. I can only imagine how your coworkers would react when they learned what kind of man you really are. The following months were difficult, but liberating. Telling the children was the most painful part. Sophia, being older, understood the situation better. Miguel was confused and sad, but over time he began to accept the new reality. Eduardo tried some legal maneuvers to contest the terms of the divorce, but the evidence against him was irrefutable. In the end, he agreed to all the proposed terms, knowing that fighting would only make everything more public and humiliating for him. The reaction from family and friends was mixed. Some were shocked. Others said they already suspected something was wrong with Eduardo's behavior in recent months. My family supported me completely, while his family was torn between loyalty to their son and disappointment with his actions. The most interesting thing was discovering that Mariana wasn't the first. Talking to other wives in Eduardo's social circle, I learned that he had a history of inappropriate behavior at social events. Several women reported instances where he had made indecent advances or attempted inappropriate flirting. This made me realize that it wasn't just a momentary weakness or a mistake. Eduardo had a pattern of behavior that I had chosen to ignore or hadn't noticed because I was blinded by love. Today, 2 years after the divorce, I can say that my life is infinitely better. The children have adapted well to the new routine. Sophia even told me that she prefers the calmer atmosphere of our home now, without the tensions she perceived, but didn't understand before the separation. Miguel maintains a good relationship with his father, who genuinely seems to be trying to be a better father during visits. Perhaps the loss of his family was the reality check Eduardo needed. As for me, I rediscovered who I was beyond being a wife and mother. I went back to school, took advanced graphic design courses, and set up my own office. My career took off in a way I never imagined possible. I also learned a lot about relationships, trust, and self-esteem. I now realize there were signs I chose to ignore, not because I was naive, but because I wanted to believe in the idealized version of my marriage. I went to therapy, something Eduardo had always discouraged, saying we didn't need strangers interfering in our relationship. Now I understand that this was just another form of control. Therapy helped me process the betrayal and anger and rebuild my self-confidence. Eduardo eventually moved to another city and rebuilt his life. I heard he's dating someone new, a younger woman who doesn't know the history of our marriage. Sometimes I wonder if he's learned something, or if he's just repeating the same patterns. But that's not my problem anymore. My concern now is for my own happiness and that of my children. I recently started dating again. He's someone completely different from Eduardo, honest, transparent, and who values open communication. I don't know if it will work out, but I know I now have the tools to identify warning signs and the courage to act when necessary. People sometimes ask me if I regret the way I handled the situation, if it wouldn't have been better to try to save the marriage, go to couples therapy, give it a second chance. My answer is always the same. Eduardo had 15 years of chances. Every day he chose to lie to me, every fake kiss he gave me, every night he slept next to me, knowing he was cheating. Those were his chances to be honest, to work through our problems, to value our family. When I discovered the betrayal, Eduardo had already made his choice a long time ago. I just made mine. Today, when I look at the notes I kept as evidence, I no longer feel the searing pain of the beginning. I see only scraps of paper that represent the end of one phase of my life and the beginning of a much better one. Eduardo's betrayal didn't destroy me. It freed me. It freed me from a life based on lies, from a one-sided love, from a future built on false foundations. My revenge wasn't cruel or destructive. It was simply the pursuit of truth and justice. It was giving my ex-husband exactly the consequences his choices deserved. It was protecting my children from growing up in an environment of hypocrisy and lies. And most importantly, it was reclaiming my dignity, my self-worth, and my ability to be happy. The romantic notes I found in my husband's pocket were the catalyst for the best decision I've ever made. Exchanging them for divorce papers wasn't revenge. It was salvation. Sometimes, the greatest betrayals are also the greatest blessings in disguise. They show us who we truly are and what we're capable of when we fight for ourselves. Eduardo lost a devoted wife, a close-knit family, and a stable life. I gained my freedom, my self-esteem, and a future full of possibilities. In the end, who really won this story? The answer is obvious. Me.